The space hospital floated silently above a glowing blue planet. Inside, everything was calm, clean, and cold. Robots moved quietly. Lights blinked softly. Doctors and nurses from different alien species walked through the long white halls. Nurse Xira was from planet Valtrax. Like all Valtraxians, she was tall, with silver blue skin and bright glowing eyes. She was smart, serious, and always followed rules. Her job was to care for injured beings from across the galaxy. Today, something strange had arrived. A rescue pod came from Sector 9. Inside was a human soldier, unconscious but alive. His name was Lieutenant Jackson. He had fought in a recent battle between humans and space pirates. His ship was destroyed. He was the only survivor. Xira stood next to the examination table looking at him. It was her first time seeing a human so close. He was muscular, his skin light brown, and he had strange hair on his face. His body was strong, but he had many injuries, burn, marks, cuts, and bruises. She began the full-body scan. "Scan start," Xira said, her voice calm. A blue light moved slowly over the human's body. She watched the monitor. Heartbeat, brain activity, blood pressure all normal. But then, something strange appeared on the lower part of the scan. "What is this?" she whispered. She zoomed in. It was a swelling, large swelling between the human's legs. Her eyes widened. She checked the scan again. Same result. "This must be an infection," she said to herself. "Or maybe a parasite." She looked at the human's face, still unconscious. No movement, no pain signs. The swelling was growing. Xira felt a strange heat rise in her cheeks. She was not used to seeing something like this. She turned quickly and opened a channel to the medical AI. "Medical AI," she said, trying to sound professional. "I have found an unusual growth on the human patient. Possible internal parasite. I request immediate analysis." Processing. The AI responded in a cold, robotic voice. Xira waited. Xira looked again at the scan. Still there? Maybe it was something dangerous? Maybe humans were carrying new viruses? She had heard rumors humans were unpredictable, emotional, full of strange behaviors. Some aliens believed they were primitive. Others said they were too powerful. But no one said anything about this. "Result ready," the AI said. Xira leaned closer, swelling between legs. Normal, male, human physiological response. No threat detected. Xira blinked. "What?" she said. She read the line again. "Normal." She shook her head. "This can't be normal. It's huge." She checked the scan for any errors. None. She scanned again. Same result. "This is impossible," she whispered. She opened a secure channel and spoke again. Medical AI confirmed diagnosis. The AI replied, "Confirmed. The swelling is caused by increased blood flow to the genital area, normal in male humans. Condition known as erection." Xira froze. "Air... CTI. On," she repeated slowly, trying to understand the word. "What is the purpose of this?" "Purpose. Reproductive behavior, often triggered by physical touch, mental stimulation, or certain emotions." Xira stepped back, almost dropping her scanner. She felt her chest tighten. Her mind raced. Had triggered this reaction? Was it the scan? Her presence? Something else. She stared at the unconscious human. "Is this because of me?" she whispered. She didn't know what to feel. Embarrassed? Angry? Curious? She looked around. No one else was in the room. She quickly covered the lower part of the human with a medical sheet. Then she turned off the scan and walked out of the room. Fast, inside her mind, a storm had started. This is normal for humans, she thought. What kind of creatures are they? But one thing was now clear. Humans were not like any other species in the galaxy, and Nurse Xira had just discovered something she was completely unprepared for. Xira couldn't sleep. The lights in the medical station dimmed for night cycle, but her mind was wide awake. She kept replaying the scan in her head, the swelling, the AI's answer, that strange word, erection. It echoed like a mystery she had never studied a puzzle outside of logic. She sat alone in the data lab, lit only by a soft green glow from the terminal screen. Her silver-blue fingers hovered over the console as she typed in commands manually. No voice requests, no logs, no traces. She didn't trust the AI anymore. Not after it had told her such a strange thing was normal. On her home planet Voltrax, emotions were tightly controlled. Physical reactions were predictable, clinical, safe. Medical procedures were clean, quiet. Nothing ever swelled, without permission, but humans. She stared at the medical chart she had quietly pulled from the restricted archives. The data on human males was scarce. Most of it was incomplete. Some pages were even redacted by Galactic Health Command. Large black boxes covered key sections. Someone had hidden this information on purpose. Why? She tapped a hidden command code into the system. A secret backdoor used only by high-ranking medical officers. It wasn't exactly legal, but she needed answers. Finally, a page loaded human. Male anatomy. Level 4 clearance required. There it was again. The word erection, the cause, emotional arousal. Reproductive readiness, or subconscious stimulation, the behavior, considered a normal sign of attraction, interest, or affection. May occur without conscious control. Xira's eyes narrowed. Subconscious control? Was the human dreaming? She pulled up the brain scan from earlier. Yes, L.T. Jackson had been in REM sleep, active brain waves. He had been dreaming, so the swelling came from a dream? This made no sense. On Voltrax, dreams were filtered and neutralized during rest. The idea that the body could react physically to a thought was terrifying and fascinating. She leaned back in the chair and whispered, "Feel ... that strongly?" Behind her, the door opened with a soft hiss. She jumped up and spun around. But it was just another nurse drill. Short reptilian creature with 6 eyes and a very bad sense of humor. "You look like you saw a ghost," he hissed, grinning. Or was it a human erection? Xira's face froze. "What did you say?" Drill laughed, sharp teeth showing. "Oh, don't act surprised. You're not the first alien nurse to panic over one. The first time I saw it, I thought it was a second heart. Wanted to cut it open." "It's not funny," Xira said coldly. "It is when you understand them," Drill said, walking over to the terminal. "Humans are weird. That's what makes them special." She crossed her arms. "Why isn't this in the medical training? Why are we not taught this?" "Because most species don't want to understand humans," Drill replied. "They scare people. Too emotional. Too passionate. Too unpredictable." Xira sat down again, staring at the screen. "But we treat them. We care for them. How can we do that if we don't know the truth?" Drill shrugged. "It's a question for the council, not for 2 late-night med nerds." Then he left, still chuckling to himself. Xira closed the file, but her thoughts didn't stop. She had never broken protocol before, never questioned the system. But tonight, something inside her had shifted. She felt curious, too curious. The next morning, she returned to the medbay early. The human, L.T. Jackson, was still asleep. His injuries were healing well. His vitals were stable. She stood beside him quietly, watching his face. There was something in its softness, mixed with strength. Humans aged differently. They had smiles and scars on their skin like stories. Valtraxians hid everything beneath. Smooth, perfect exteriors. Humans showed it all. Suddenly, Jackson moved. Just a twitch, but then his eyelids fluttered. A moment later, his eyes opened, deep brown, confused but alert. He stared at her. Where am I?" he said slowly. "You were in Galactic Medical Station 7? She replied, voice flat and professional. "You were rescued after your ship was destroyed." Jackson blinked. You're not human." "I am Nurse Xira of Voltrax," she said, checking his chart without meeting his eyes. He chuckled weakly. "Didn't expect to wake up to a space angel," she frowned. I am not an angel. I am a certified medical officer. He smiled. Same thing, maybe. Xira hesitated. Her training told her to ignore such comments. But this time, she didn't. XPERIENCED. A physical reaction during sleep, she said slowly. Jackson coughed. Yeah, that can happen. She leaned in, eyes serious. Is it a disease? He laughed, then winced from pain. No. Not a disease, just ... biology. I do not understand, she said. Sometimes, he said with a tired smile, our bodies react to ... Thoughts, feelings, even dreams. That is highly inefficient, she said. Maybe, Jackson replied. But it means we feel things, even when we sleep. Xira looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she paused and said quietly, Your biology ... is disturbing. Jackson grinned. Welcome to humanity. As the door closed behind her, Shira's heart beat slightly faster than normal. She told herself it was stress. But deep inside, something was beginning to change, and she didn't know whether to fear it or follow it. The silence in the medbay was heavier now. Jackson was awake. His wounds healing, but the air between him and Xira had changed. Not tense, but strange, full of unspoken things. Xira tried to focus on her tasks. She moved with perfect grace, scanning his chest with the hand device, checking oxygen levels, adjusting the foretubes. But her eyes didn't meet his, and that was not like her. Jackson watched her, resting back on the bed, shirtless under the thin hospital sheet. His body still hurt, but less now. His mind was starting to enjoy the company. All Valtraxians work in silence, he asked, breaking the quiet. Xira blinked, then glanced at him. No, some speak. You don't. When needed. He smiled. Is this not needed? You are stable, she said simply. Talking is not required. Jackson tilted his head slightly, pretending to think. So ... the thing that happened. During sleep ... you said you saw it. Xira paused. The scanner in her hand buzzed softly. Yes, he chuckled. Must have been quite a surprise. It was not expected, she said flatly. That's one way to say it. Set the scanner. Denon walked over to the console. Fingers moved quickly, pulling up new medication logs. But inside, she was confused. She didn't like confusion. It made her feel ... less in control. Jackson watched her carefully. Her posture was too straight, too stiff. Something bothered her. Is there something you want to ask me? Said Xira. Didn't turn around. There are many things I want to ask. But not all questions are allowed. He raised an eyebrow. Why not? They are not professional, she answered. He laughed again, soft and genuine. Xira ... You saw me with a full erection. I think we're past professional at this point. She turned slowly to face him, face unreadable. Why does it happen ... when you sleep? You were not ... stimulated. Jackson smiled. Dreams. Emotions. Memory. Sometimes it's just the body doing what it wants. But your mind controls your body. Not always, he said. Sometimes the body tells the mind what it feels, not the other way around. Xira frowned. That idea sounded backwards. On Valtrax, the body was ruled by logic, controlled through discipline from birth. No surprises, no random reactions. Do you desire reproduction all the time? She asked suddenly, her voice low. Jackson laughed, so hard he had to hold his ribs. No, he said through the chuckle. It's not just about reproduction, it's about connection, attraction, chemistry. Xira looked confused. Chemistry? As in ... molecules? Kind of, he said, nodding. But not the lab kind. It's hard to explain. It's when your body and mind react to someone. Something about them pulls you in, even if you don't want it to. She tilted her head, like gravity. Jackson smiled. Exactly. But with feelings. Xira stepped closer, curiosity replacing caution. What did you feel? When you were asleep. He shrugged. Not sure. It's blurry. But I remember. Something warm. A presence. Maybe yours. She stared at him for a moment, then looked away. Her hands tightened slightly at her sides. There is a rumor among aliens, she said quietly, that humans feel too much, that your emotions are dangerous. Jackson's voice dropped a bit. Oh, they are. But that's what makes them real. Xira didn't respond. She turned to adjust a setting on the console. But she wasn't thinking about the machine. She was thinking about him. About the way he spoke, the way his voice shifted with emotion, the way his face told 100 stories, even when silent. Valtraxians were trained to suppress emotion. But something inside her had cracked open. Just a little. After a long pause, Jackson asked, "What do Valtraxians feel?" She hesitated. "We feel balance, duty, discipline," she replied. "No joy. No desire. We are taught that desire leads to chaos." "Maybe," he said softly, "but sometimes chaos is what makes us alive." Xira stepped back, unsettled. She needed to reset herself. She needed cold silence, a white hallway, something familiar. "I must go," she said. Quickly. "You need rest." "I've had enough rest," he said. "What I need is ... conversation." Xira didn't reply. She walked out the door, her boots clicking on the metal floor. Each step faster than the last, but she didn't go to her quarters. She didn't go to the lab. Instead, she stood alone in the observation deck, staring out into the black sea of stars. Her hands trembled slightly. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was fear, or fascination, or something she didn't have a word for. Behind her. The door opened again. "I thought I might find you here," said Drill, his 6 eyes blinking in amusement. "Still thinking about your humans? Biology?" Xira didn't answer. Drill slithered closer, watching her. Nurse first its curiosity. Then fascination? Then ... She looked at him sharply. "Then what?" "Then you become part of their gravity," he said, tapping his temple, "and you don't come back the same." He laughed again and left her there, alone with her thoughts. Xira stared at the stars, her face calm, but her mind burning. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what came next, and strangely, she didn't hate the feeling. The dream started the next night. Xira wasn't used to dreaming. On Valtrax, dreams were filtered, cleaned, and stored by the brain's internal regulation system. Sleep was for restoration, not wandering thoughts. But tonight, something had broken. Protocol. She stood in a white corridor, cold, silent, endless. Then she saw him, Jackson, standing barefoot.
Yes.
Smiling, wearing his Earth's military uniform like it weighed nothing. His body was glowing faintly, not from light, but from presence. He said nothing, just reached out his hand. Xira reached back. Her fingers were inches away when she woke up. Gasping, her breath fogging the chill air of her private quarters. Her heart rate was too high, her skin too warm. She sat up and placed a trembling hand on her chest. "What is happening to me?" she whispered. She reported to duty as usual, but her steps were slower. Her mind wandered. She found herself watching him when she shouldn't. Listening to his voice from the other side of the room. Laughing once at a joke he made. It scared her more than anything. The council wouldn't approve. She knew it already. So that night, after everyone else had powered down their consoles and gone to rest mode, she returned to the restricted archives, not just the medical ones, the classified ones. Using the clearance she stole from Drill's forgotten login, she accessed files that hadn't been opened in years. Hidden files. Dangerous ones. She typed, "Human behavior." Emotional risk reports. Suppressed. A list of documents loaded. She opened the first one. It was a report from a distant planet where a single human diplomat had convinced 2 warring species to stop a 200-year blood feud. Not with force, not with logic, with emotion, with a story, with a song. The second report was worse. An entire station had gone rogue after falling under the influence of a small human crew. The alien officers reported experiencing feelings they had never felt before: loyalty, love, heartbreak, longing. The Valtraxian commander who investigated was later removed for emotional contamination. Contamination? Xira leaned forward. Her breath caught in her throat. That's what they feared. Not human violence. Not human weapons. Human connection. Humans changed others just by being with them, by feeling too deeply, too freely. Other species couldn't handle it. Some got addicted to it. Others went mad. And now, Svi was at risk. She closed the files quickly, her hands shaking. Behind her, the door opened again. She turned fast, expecting a superior. But it was Jackson. He wore only the simple med gown. His steps were soft, careful, but his eyes, they looked right into her. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "I saw you leave medbay. Figured you might be here." "You're not authorized to be here," she said, voice tighter than normal. He raised his hands, "Then punish me." She didn't smile. But she didn't stop him either. "You found something, didn't you?" he asked, walking closer. Xira stood still. Silent, Jackson reached the console and touched a corner of the screen. "They're afraid of us, aren't they? The other species. It's not because we're violent, but because we ... affect things." Xira looked away. "You bring disorder?" "Maybe," he said gently. "But sometimes a little disorder is good." "You don't understand what this does to us," she whispered. "We are taught to contain ourselves, to stay balanced. You ... break that." He took a slow breath. "Do you want me to stop talking to you?" She didn't answer. "Do you want me to leave this station?" Still no answer. He took one more step. "Do you feel something when I'm near you?" That made her flinch. Just slightly. But it was enough. Jackson's voice softened. "You don't have to say it. I feel it too." Her face tightened. "This cannot happen. It is not allowed." "Why not?" "Because it changes things," she said. Jackson smiled. "Good." "No," she snapped, stepping back. "Not good. It breaks order. It leads to chaos. Emotional contamination has ended careers, ended lives." Jackson looked at her like he was seeing something no one else ever had. Not a nurse. Not an alien. Not a soldier. Just someone trying to hold herself together. "You know what's worse than chaos?" said. "Emptiness." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Outside the window, the stars drifted past like slow sparks in space. Jackson turned to go. He didn't push her. He didn't try to convince her. But just before he left, he said, "I think your heart already made the choice. It's just waiting for the rest of you to catch up." The door closed behind him. Xira stood there, frozen. She looked back at the terminal. The last file on the list blinked softly. It's unopened. She clicked it. It was a personal log. A Valtraxian doctor, 70 cycles ago. The voice in the recording was calm. But sad. "I fell in love with a human. I tried to fight it. I tried to stop it. But in the end, it wasn't a weakness. It was the only time I truly felt alive. The others will never understand. But maybe one day someone will." The file ended. Xira closed her eyes. Her hands curled slowly into fists, and deep inside her, something cracked again, not broken, opened. Xira didn't speak to Jackson for 2 cycles. Not because she was angry, because she was terrified. Not of him, but of herself. She had always known who she was. A healer, a scientist, a daughter of Valtrax, bound by discipline and duty. Her life followed straight lines, neat patterns. Every feeling was filtered, every reaction measured, until now. Now her heart betrayed her at random. Now dreams came without permission. Now silence felt too loud. She buried herself in reports, data logs, tissue samples, anything that didn't speak back, didn't feel. But none of it helped. Every chart she read reminded her of him. Every human heartbeat she monitored echoed like his. And worst of all, she missed his voice. When she finally saw him again, it wasn't planned. She was walking through the botanical. Dome, a quiet space filled with imported plants from dozens of worlds. Valtraxians rarely visited. It was too alive, too colorful, too unpredictable, but he was there, sitting under a Terran tree with bright yellow leaves, eyes closed, breathing slowly. One arm still bandaged, chest rising and falling gently. He looked. Peaceful, he looked. Real. She didn't know whether to walk away or speak. He made the choice for her. I thought maybe you forgot me, he said without opening his eyes. She stood still. That would be easier. He smiled. Yeah, but not better. After a pause, she walked forward and sat on the bench across from him. Not too close, but closer than she meant to. They said nothing for a while, just listened to the leaves flutter. Then Jackson opened his eyes and asked, Why did you stop talking to me? Xira didn't look at him, because I needed to reset. Did you? No. She didn't answer. Jackson leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You know, I used to believe all aliens were cold, no emotions, just logic and duty. But that's not true, is it? Xira turned to him slowly. We are not cold, or controlled. Same thing, he said gently. When you don't let yourself feel something, you freeze. And when you freeze too long, you break. She stared at him. Her voice, when it came, was soft. Why do you humans feel so much? Even when it hurts, because feeling nothing hurts more, he said. Pain means something mattered. His words landed in her chest like heat. She looked away. Her voice dropped. I accessed forbidden records. I saw what your people have done, what they single quotes feed. Changed. Yeah, we mess things up sometimes. No, she said. You move people without meaning to. You change others just by existing. He looked at her with something, like sadness. That's why most of the galaxy keeps us at arm's length. Yes, she said, because you're contagious. Silence again. Then she asked the question that had been circling in her mind for days. Did it happen because of me? Jackson blinked. Did what happen? In the medbay? The first time? The response? Was it triggered by me? He smiled, but it wasn't teasing. It was warm. Careful, I think so, he said. But not just by how you look. It was how you were. Calm, focused, beautiful in a way I didn't expect. And I think, somewhere in my half-dead brain, something just said yes. She looked. At her hands, no one has ever responded to me like that before. He tilted his head. Have you ever let anyone close enough? Xira didn't reply. The answer was obvious. Jackson reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object, an old Earth coin. Flipped it once, caught it, then held it in his palm. My father used to say life's a coin toss. Either hold on to what you know, or risk everything for something new. She stared at the coin, and if it lands wrong, he smiled. Then you toss it again. She laughed softly, but real. For the first time, she felt the fear shrink a little. Not vanish, just ... loosen its grip. Later in the quiet of her quarters, she scanned her own body. Vitals normal. But when she reviewed the emotional telemetry brain, heat signatures, pulse waves, gland responses, one thing was clear. She was reacting just like he had. It wasn't illness. It wasn't weakness. It was connection, and it was changing her the next day. She called for him. He entered the exam room with a small smile. Did I break something again? She shook her head. No, this time ... I want to understand something. He sat down. Shoot. She picked up a neural interface scanner. I want to see what happens to your mind ... when you feel. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Sounds risky. For science, he said. For science, he agreed. She placed the soft band across his temples and activated the scan. His brainwaves lit up on the screen, vivid and unpredictable, patterns that danced like music. Now, she said, think about something that makes you feel ... connected. He didn't hesitate. I'm already looking at her. The scanner. Spiked, bright bursts of light. Elevated waves. Xira looked at the screen, fascinated. Your brain reacts faster to emotion than to pain. Yeah, he said. That's what makes us terrible soldiers, but good poets. She smiled without hiding it this time. He reached up slowly, not touching, just lifting his hand near hers. I won't rush you, he said. You can take all the time you need, but I just want you to know I'm here. I'm not afraid of feeling things. She looked down at his hand, then back into his eyes. For once, the unknown didn't feel dangerous. It felt like a beginning. Xira had spent her whole life understanding things. She understood cells, organs, data waves. She understood equations that measured time across gravity wells, and she could diagnose over 70 alien infections by scent alone. But now, she didn't understand herself. Not anymore. She stared into the mirror in her private quarters, watching her own face. Same eyes, same skin, same soft glow of her neural crown beneath her scalp. Everything looked normal, but something inside was not. Her pulse was higher. Her chest felt tight, warm. There was no virus, no injury. She had checked twice. Her body wasn't failing her. It was feeling something. She opened a diagnostic interface and ran her emotional activity scan again. This was the 5th time today. Each time the patterns were different. Unstable. Alive. She had only seen these levels once before in humans, and now. Somehow in her, she couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. This kind of reaction in a Valtraxian would trigger a full mind stability. Review. If the council discovered she had emotionally bonded with a patient worse, a human, she'd be removed from service. Disgraced, but still. She didn't regret it. Not yet. Not until the message arrived. It blinked into her screen without sound. No sender listed, but the encryption tag was clear. Valtrax High Command Priority Review Notice. Subject. Emotional contamination risk. She stared at the screen for several seconds, not breathing. They knew she didn't move, didn't blink. The message was short. Your interactions with the human soldier have exceeded standard medical protocol. Prepare for psychological scan in full. Report. Known compliance will be considered confirmation of contamination. They weren't asking. They were giving her a warning. She shut down the screen, her hands trembling. For a moment, she just sat there, silent, heart racing. Then she stood up, fast. She didn't go to the medical bay. She didn't go to her superiors. She went to the only person who would understand. Jackson was in the lower observatory, sitting in one of the reclining chairs, feet up, arms behind his head, watching the stars. Roll by. He looked completely at peace. She hated how easy it was for him to look free, and she hated how much she wanted to feel the same. He saw her in the reflection before she even spoke. Hey, said, still watching the window. You look like you saw a ghost. Worse, she said. They found out. He turned. About us. There is no us, she snapped too quickly. He raised an eyebrow. Then why are you here? She looked down. Jackson stood up, walking toward her. What did they say? They called it contamination, she said bitterly. Want a scan? A full mind sweep? He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. That's not just a checkup. That's erasure. They'll delete whatever they think doesn't belong. She nodded. And they won't let me explain. They'll see the emotional patterns and decide I'm broken. He looked at her for a long time. Then he spoke softly. Run. She blinked. What? Come with me, he said. There are human transport vessels in nearby systems. I have contacts. We can disappear. That's desertion, she said. I'll lose everything. You already have, he replied. You just don't want to admit it. She stepped back. I'm not like you. I can't just walk away from my people. You're not walking away, Jackson said. We're walking toward something real, something you chose. It's not betrayal, that's survival. Xira looked away, eyes shining just slightly. We don't choose feelings on Veltrax, she said. Then maybe Veltrax is wrong. Silence stretched between them, long and fragile. Finally, she whispered, I don't even know who I am anymore. Reached out, not touching her, but close. You're someone who learned how to feel. It's not weakness, Xira. That's being alive. The room was quiet again. Only the hum of the space station, soft pulse of gravity stabilizers. She could feel the choice forming inside her. Heavy, sharp. But before she could answer, her personal cum device vibrated. Unknown contact. She opened it. A hologram flickered. Into life a figure, in a gray robe, face hidden. Xira of Valtrax, the voice said. We are watching. Your next actions will define your status. If you do not report for your scan within 1 cycle, you will be labeled compromised. Then the message vanished. Jackson didn't speak. He just looked at her, letting her breathe. Letting her feel she looked at him. I'm afraid, she said. So was I, he replied. I don't know what comes next. Neither do I. But if I go with you, she said slowly, there's no turning back. He nodded. I know. Hands curled into fists at her side. She closed her eyes. And when she opened them again, something in her had changed. I'll go, she said. He smiled, but she wasn't finished. But only if I understand this fully, she added. Not just the emotion, the science, the connection. I want to know what this is. Why humans affect us. Why it matters. Jackson nodded. Then we'll figure it out, together. We didn't smile. She didn't walk away either. Later that night, she stood alone in the medbay, one last time. She placed her hand on the scanner table where he had once lain, unconscious. Where everything had started, she whispered one word. Strange. Then she turned off the lights and walked out, and didn't look back. Xira had never broken protocol in her life. But now, here she was, standing in the docking bay, heart pounding, staring at a small, unmarked shuttle that didn't belong to the station's fleet. Its shape was unfamiliar, its code unregistered. It hovered silently, waiting. Jackson stood beside her, calm, holding nothing but a small pack on his back and a grin that looked a little too sure of itself. This is madness, Xira whispered, more to herself than to him. Maybe Jackson replied, but sometimes madness is freedom in disguise. She didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the shuttle. Her mind was full of everything she was leaving behind her position, her name, her homeworld. Once she stepped onto that craft, she would no longer be Xira of Valtrax. She would be something new, something undefined. The ramp hissed open. Soft breeze moved through the docking bay, carrying the strange scent of human ship metal and recycled earth air. It didn't smell sterile. It smelled alive. She hesitated. You don't have to do this, Jackson said, his voice softer now. Don't you? I'll go alone if I have to. Xira turned her head. You would just vanish? He nodded. Better that than let them wipe me from your mind. She looked at him for a long time, then finally spoke. I don't want to forget you. It was the closest she'd ever come to saying I care. Jackson smiled, but it wasn't the playful one this time. It was quiet, grateful, real. They stepped onto the shuttle together as the hatch closed behind them. Xira felt something strange, like gravity shifting, not in her body, but in her identity. For the first time in her life, she wasn't following a path. She was choosing one. The flight was silent. Jackson piloted. Xira sat beside him, fingers wrapped tightly around a neural tablet, scanning their trajectory and jamming outgoing signals. Behind them, the medical station shrank into a dot of cold light. They'll send ships after us, she said. Maybe Jackson replied, but they'll have to catch us first. She looked out the window. This shuttle is old. It's human-made, he said with a wink. Old doesn't mean slow. She didn't laugh, but she also didn't roll her eyes. They landed hours later on a neutral moon, a place with no names, just numbers. The surface was cracked and blue. The sky, a haze of static. Small camps dotted the landscape, each home to outcasts, drifters, thinkers, beings without flags. Jackson had contacts here, human scientist named Ellen. She was older, sharped, and didn't ask questions. You brought a Valtraxian? Ellen muttered, raising one eyebrow. Didn't think you were that stupid or that brave? Jackson smiled. Maybe I'm both. Xira stood tall. I'm not here as a Valtraxian, Ellen smirked. Good then, let's see what you are. They stayed in a small bunker on the far side of the ridge, far from any patrol scans. No windows, just screens that projected stars onto the ceiling, like a memory. Time moved strangely here. Days were short, nights felt endless, in the quiet. As Xira studied, she scanned Jackson's biology again and again, not just his physical systems, but his emotional frequencies. His hormone surges, the way his neural patterns reacted to voice, touch, even proximity. She wasn't just fascinated, she was evolving at night. They sat close, never too close, but close enough to share warmth. Sometimes he spoke about Earth, not the cities or the politics, but the smells of rain, the sound of ocean waves, the messy way people fell in love. She listened without interrupting, and sometimes she asked him to keep talking, even after he stopped. "You're changing," he said one night. She looked down at her hands. "Yes, I feel it. Does it scare you?" She nodded, but less than it did. Then he asked, "Do you miss who you were?" She thought about that. "No," she said. "I think I'm becoming more." Eventually the news reached them, a quiet message from a sympathetic officer still on the station. The Voltrax Council had issued a formal declaration. Xira was no longer registered in the medical ranks. Her citizen status had been suspended. She was labeled emotionally compromised. Jackson watched her as she read the file. "Are you okay?" he asked. She closed the screen slowly. "I was afraid they'd take my title," she said. "They did," he replied. She met his eyes. "And yet, I don't feel empty." Jackson stepped closer. "Because you're more than a title now." They stood there, close enough that their breath almost touched. This time neither of them stepped back. Later that night, she ran a scan on herself. Again, same results, elevated response levels, emotional memory storage unlocked. Neural pathways remapped by prolonged exposure to human interaction. But instead of closing the file, she named it Human Effect, Phase 1. She knew this was only the beginning. They started building something after that. Not a relationship, not yet, but a research project. Together, Xira recorded her journey. How her emotions had grown. How connection had rewritten her biology. Jackson shared data about other species that had reacted the same way. They began forming a theory. What if humanity's greatest power wasn't in their weapons or speed or technology? What if it was emotional gravity, the ability to pull others into their orbit, to change not just minds, but hearts, to make others feel? Xira wrote the final line of the report one night. When Jackson was asleep beside her, his arm resting gently across her leg like he had forgotten to keep space between them, she wrote, "They called it contamination. I call it awakening." When she saved the file, she looked down at him and whispered something she'd never said out loud before. "Thank you for being human." He stirred in his sleep, just enough to turn toward her, eyes still closed. And for the first time, without fear, she smiled.